I was asked in a recent Q&A, why does knee cave happen? Tried multiple times and could not answer it in less than 60 seconds. So my new goal is going to be less than 5 minutes. I'm going to talk rather quickly here, so let's go ahead and get into it. There's two primary categories of why knee cave takes place. The first of which is a technique-based reason, and the second of which is more so a functional capacity/strength reason. On this side of things, it can get rather nuanced rather quickly. There's certain things we have to understand to frame the conversation of solutions, such as the difference between phasic and tonic muscle groups, our body's natural compensatory strategies to move load when we surpass its functional capacity to maintain balanced co-contraction of musculature. But luckily, it's not on this side, it is on this side. Reviewed your video, and there's a very clear technical reason why you're having trouble controlling knee position. Let's get into it, but there's plenty we still have to preface with. So first off, to understand why knee cave takes place for technical reasons, I'm going to use a few references. First off, the knee is a conduit of communication between the foot-ankle complex and the hip-trunk complex. Another reference I like to use is our knee is kind of like a private in a stereotypical military movie. The private does not think for himself, does not do for himself. He only does what his commander tells him to do, and the commander in this reference is the foot-ankle complex and the hip-trunk complex. Whenever somebody has knee cave issues for technical reasons, it's one of these two root causes, the foot-ankle or the hip-trunk. For you specifically, saw the video, clear as day, that it starts off with trunk stability. It all starts there. Our breathing mechanics is really hurting us. But before we get into that even, we have to understand mechanistically what happens when we breathe, brace, and generate intra-abdominal pressure, the most important foundation of loaded movement. Understand, the diaphragm is the catalyst. Our breathing and our diaphragm is the catalyst of intra-abdominal pressure creation. We have this diaphragm here in our chest cavity. The central tendon of the diaphragm actually approximates downwards towards the pelvic floor to initiate IEP creation. And as it does so, it actually compresses the fluids, the gases, the tissues, and presses them outward in all directions. So when you see elite level efficient lifters, they take a breath and you see that horizontal expansion, not just here, but also here, a 360 sheath of inflation. That's what's taking place. We see eccentric activation of all of our trunk musculature around our actual trunk. But understand that to do this well, to do this optimally, our rib cage has to be positioned directly over the top of our pelvis. When our position is limiting, we no longer have this even solid stacked position. So for example, anterior pelvic tilt, that's a classic common example. When somebody goes into anterior pelvic tilt for a variety of different reasons, we have this open scissor position. When this happens, our central tendon of our diaphragm moves anteriorly. It's no longer lined up directly over the pelvic floor. Therefore, it doesn't have the same ability to approximate towards the pelvic floor and generate intra-abdominal pressure. So you decrease, down-regulate your opportunity to generate trunk stabilization just by having a positional issue like this. So a lot of lifters are dead upon arrival when they go to generate IEP simply because of a positional limitation. Another example that's extremely common and drives me crazy is head position issues. Head position matters, and it matters a lot, especially with a squat. This is something that I've known for quite some time. If you're an experienced coach, especially one that specializes in trunk stability creation, IEP creation, you will notice time and time again, when somebody has a forward head position, their ability to horizontally expand immediately decreases. But there's actually recent studies that further confirm this, that actually measure diaphragm function with a short duration forward head position. What it clearly shows is that diaphragm function down regulates when somebody has a severely forward head position. Now, the proposed reason of why this is, the proposed mechanism of why this is. First off, to understand this a little bit better, what moves bones? Muscles. What moves muscles? Nerves. So our diaphragm is moved by a specific nerve or controlled by a specific nerve, and that is the phrenic nerve. The phrenic nerve goes from the diaphragm all the way around our neck and connects to the cervical spine on the right side and the left side. It actually runs up here similar to a necklace, right and left. That's also why it's clearly been shown that when somebody has severe neck issues, trauma, whiplash from car accidents, whatever it may be, their diaphragm function is downregulated. And this was also found within short duration forward head position. So the proposed supposed mechanism of why the diaphragm was downregulated in this study was that temporary entrapment of the phrenic nerve associated with or caused by a severely forward head position. So going back to intra-abdominal pressure creation, there are certain positional limitations that makes a lifter dead upon arrival. They will never be able to generate maximal IAP due to massive positional limitations that makes it so that they have the bias towards compensatory breathing strategies that will not maximize trunk stability. Therefore, it has downstream consequences such as a higher likelihood of knee cave. Your head position is severely forward, very, very forward. So that's why you have these extremely vertical breathing patterns. Compare this to this. Nothing's happening down here. We don't see that same eccentric activation of the trunk stabilizers. We don't see the same amount of intra-abdominal pressure being created. Therefore, the root cause of your knee cave issue starts with trunk stability, and that's the number one thing we have to work on to start moving in the right direction. There's likely some additional things we can implement to further improve this, but it all starts with trunk stabilization. It all starts with the most important foundation of axial loaded movement, intra-abdominal pressure.